Hi guys, hello, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in September, and I do feel like I'm a little late to this. It's already like mid-October almost, but better late than never. In the month of September, I did read 8 books. This is 6 of them because one of them was on Kindle and the other one was a library book, so I've already returned it. But I had a pretty good reading month overall. So the first one that I read was Small Game by Blair Braverman, and I really liked this book. I definitely feel like it's a good one for fall/spooky season. The general premise of this very much reminds me of Hatchet, and Hatchet was one of my favorite books as a kid. I feel like I've mentioned that so many times, but I loved Hatchet. The concept of people having to like survive in the woods to me is just so interesting for some reason. I would never want to have to do it myself, but I love reading about it and like watching it and stuff. And I've been kind of like actively looking for books that are kind of like an adult version. We have found it. This reminds me so much of Hatchet, but like an adult twisted dark version. This one is basically about a group of 4 contestants on a reality show that get kind of like dropped in the middle of the woods to survive for, I think it was like 3 weeks. And they end up going from like surviving on a reality show to like actually having to survive. And this just like overall had such an eerie, creepy kind of vibe. The first half of this, I felt like I was just like waiting for the shoe drop, that kind of feeling. And then once the shoe does drop, it definitely takes a dark kind of twist, and this was just so good. So highly recommend, especially for people that loved Hatchet. The second book that I read in September was our Kindle book, and that was Alien Claw, and that is the 10th book in the Fated Mates of the Seasand Warlords series. I have been eating this series up. It's basically like a spicy alien romance series. The setup of the series has a very similar vibe to Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon, which I also really love. But that one I'm kind of like collecting the books as they're being published because the covers are being like redone. So I'm just kind of like reading that one as it's being republished. But this one, like I said, I've been reading on my Kindle and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. And again, it's very similar to kind of like the setup of Ice Planet Barbarians, but instead of the humans landing on an ice planet, they land on a desert planet. Personally, I definitely would rather land on a desert planet than an ice one. I hate being cold, but I also hate being hot. So I think I would hate it either way. But the aliens definitely make up for it, which, that being said, the other thing that's very similar to Ice Planet is that kind of like fated mate kind of situation. So obviously each book has its own specific couple that it focuses on, but you do get a lot of glimpses of like the other aliens, the other humans, and they all kind of like obviously tie into each other. And what's really cool about this series in particular is each human was specifically selected for their job, because another thing that kind of like differs from this series to Ice Planet Barbarians, in Ice Planet, they're abducted by aliens. In this one, they're actually abducted by their own government and dropped into this planet as like an experiment type of situation. There's like a linguist, there's an engineer, there's someone that studies rocks, there's someone that studies animals. So they all have like their own speciality, if you will. So each individual story feels more individual, if that makes sense. And then also one of the things that I feel like is really interesting about this series in particular is there's different tribes of aliens that you're dealing with. Again, I love both Ice Planet and this series, but one of the things about this series that I kind of like a little bit more is that there is always kind of something new happening. Whereas with Ice Planet, I do feel like they're kind of all feeling very similar. Like where I'm at in the series now, there is like a big shift that's happening, so I'm excited for that. But up until that point, it's been very kind of like the same thing over and over again a little bit. Whereas this one, because of like the different specialities within the humans and then the fact that there is different tribes and things like that, I feel like it's very similar book to book, but then also it does have like significant differences, if that makes any sense. Either way, I love both of the series, but this one has been really fun and I'm almost done with it, which makes me kind of sad. I'm currently reading the 11th book, and actually let me look it up because I feel like last time I said that there was 15 books, but I actually think there's only 14 or there's 16. So I don't really know. There's 16 books. So yeah, I've got like 5 more after the one that I'm currently reading, and I'm gonna be sad to see it go. Moving on to our third read for September, we have Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair. Scarlett St. Clair is one of my favorite authors, so I was very excited that this book got chosen for my August read in my book club. That being said, obviously it was August's read, but I did not read it until September, but we did read it. And I'm gonna be honest, this was not my most favorite book from her. This is actually my least favorite book from Scarlett St. Clair, just because a lot of the plot does have to do with like religion, and that is definitely something that I'm finding I do not like to read about. A lot of times when you have that theme, at least with the books that I've read so far, every time, honestly, it's about the injustice of it and how it like represses people, and that is the one thing that like instantly angers me. I don't understand like trying to control people or like make people live the way you want to live. Just let people be. If they're not hurting anybody, what's the problem? So that being said, this was not my favorite just because of the tone, but that has nothing to do with the author. Like, again, I still love her. She's one of my favorite authors, but this series in particular, because this is the first book in a series, I probably won't continue. I have absolutely no recollection of how this ended, but I do feel like it ended in a way where I was like, oh, like, I think I want to read the next one. Because like this whole time I'm kind of like, I'm probably not going to continue this. And then the ending happened and I remember thinking, maybe I will. But now that it's been a few weeks, I can't remember at all what happened. So again, I'm back to kind of, I probably will not continue this series. The majority of this book is in the perspective of our FMC, but before every chapter, there's like a page or two little like baby POV from our male love interest, and I really, really enjoyed those. Like, that made the romance better. I think without that little part, I probably wouldn't even have really liked the romance all that much. But I also think another thing that kind of wasn't my favorite about this book was the actual like flow of it. Every time it started building and I started getting like, ooh, okay, we're about to get into something good, it would switch back to something like super mundane. And that got a little kind of like, ugh. So I think that's another reason I didn't love that book. Next up we have The Shadow Bride. This one is the second book in a duet of a spin-off series from Serpent and Dove. First trilogy, Serpent and Dove, I absolutely love that. And then the first book in this duet, I absolutely loved. That being said, this book probably was my least favorite out of the entire two series because, I don't know, I feel like I kind of messed myself up with this one a little bit because I started it during a really bad reading slump and I ended up actually reading like a decent chunk of it. I think, if I remember correctly, it was kind of like something like this is how much I read, and then I had this left over and I just abandoned the book. Like, I was in my reading slump and I was hoping, because I loved the rest of the books so much, that this would kind of get me out of it. But what ended up happening instead was that I just could not for the life of me get into this book. Like, I was reading it and I just didn't care about anything that was happening. So I decided to like put it down and pick it up later when my slump was over so that I could actually enjoy it. And again, when I went to pick it up last month to like actually finally finish it, I had read way more of it than I had realized. So I kind of feel like I should have just finished it then, because at that point it had been, I think, at least a few weeks, so I could not really remember what was going on. And then also, because there was so little for me to kind of like finish, there was no time for me to get momentum back to like get into it. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense. So basically, long story long, this was a very meh kind of reading experience for me, and I'm really annoyed at myself for doing that because I feel like it was my own fault. I feel like I just said a lot of things and nothing at the same time. So hopefully you got something out of that review. Moving on, we have The Spell Shop, and this is the book that I got from the library. So again, I don't have it any longer, but this one was our September read for my book club, which, by the way, if you want to join the book club, become a Midnight Reader, I do leave a link for it in the description of all my videos. But this is another read that I feel like is perfect for the fall season. It is a cozy fantasy, and I'm realizing that cozy fantasies are not really books that I gravitate toward because I don't really love a slow plot. I've liked every one that I've read, but I've never like read a cozy fantasy and been like, this is my new favorite book. You know what I mean? They're all just kind of like, that was good. So I'm gonna be honest, going into this book, I wasn't like the most excited, but I ended up really loving it. Like, this was such a cute story, and I do feel like our FMC was like one of the reasons why I enjoyed this so much, because she is so awkwardly antisocial and I just loved it. I love a unique characteristic, and I do feel like she was a very unique character to anything else that I've really ever read. Basically, she's a librarian in like the larger city, and there's like an uprising, so her and her sentient spider plant friend have to escape. So they end up escaping and taking like a small little boat to the island that she grew up on, which is a much smaller island, and the little town has like a very kind of like small town vibe, like where everyone knows everyone knows everyone's business and that kind of thing. And her plant move into like the abandoned house that she like grew up in, that their family still owns, but like no one lives there and hasn't lived there for a really long time. And she just tries her best in the beginning to have as little contact as possible with all the people in the town, and that was just hilarious to me. But then also, like, the little life that she ends up building in this town is literally like my dream. Actually, you know what? The only thing that I didn't love about this book was the fact that I actually, like, coming from me that literally just said I don't love a cozy story, I kind of wish there was more coziness in this story. I obviously don't want to give anything away about the plot, but basically she got to a point where she was like kind of getting more comfortable in this new life. But as soon as that kind of like happened, our like conflict started happening. I like found myself like wanting that to hurry up and resolve so we can get back to the other part of it that that I was enjoying, and it never really did that because it was kind of like conflict after conflict after conflict, and then it ended. So I honestly wish there was a little bit more coziness in it, but overall, absolutely loved it. Hi guys, my camera battery died yesterday and then I got distracted. So we're continuing on with our reading wrap up today. We only have 3 more books left, and the next one that we have is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. I had a very similar kind of experience to this book as I did with The Shadow Bride, where I started reading this last fall and I was actually really enjoying it, but I ended up getting distracted by a different book, and I had planned to like pick this up right after I finished that other one, and I just never did, which is something that I am realizing I cannot do. The first time I read this, I think I read like half of it, and again, I was really enjoying it, specifically with the romance that's in this book. It's not like anything crazy because this does take place, you know, a really long time ago, 1888. So it happened a very long time ago. Obviously romance was different back then than it is now. And as an example, there was a scene specifically where he like touched her hand, I think it was, and she was kind of like freaking out, and it was like so scandalous that he was like touched her hand. And I remember thinking that was so endearing and cute the first time around. Second time around, or like with the second half of the book, didn't love it so much. It was kind of just like either shit or get off the pot. You know what I mean? I don't know, it was just going too slow. Like everything about it was just too slow for me. Even within the mystery, I was invested enough to like want to know who did it, but not enough to actually want to read the book. So I did skim the last like couple or few chapters. It's hard to rate because again, I had like such polarizingly different reading experiences from the first half to the second half. So I want to say like a 3 just to kind of like cut it down the middle, but like this isn't a book that I would necessarily ever really think about again or recommend, which is kind of disappointing just simply for the fact that I love everything else that I've read from Carrie Maniscalco. The Kingdom of the Wicked is like one of my favorite series, and the following like spin-off books that have been coming out since then, I've absolutely loved those. Well, technically I've only read one of them, but I'm sure I'm gonna love the second one as well. So yeah, I love her fantasy writing, but this one is just not for me, which honestly, when I went into this book, I heard that you either kind of like this and don't like Kingdom of the Wicked, or you like Kingdom of the Wicked and you don't really like this. Second to last, we have one of my favorite books from this month. We have That Time I Got Drunk and Needed a Love Potion and a Werewolf. I had such a good time with this one. This is the second book in the Mead's Mishaps series by Kimberly Lemming, and I read the first one I think a few months ago or earlier this year. I don't really remember, and I liked it, but it wasn't anything that I was like super obsessed with. This one I absolutely loved. This one was so fun, and I also do feel like actually that this one was better because I knew more of the characters. I am definitely someone that is a little harder to warm up to characters. Like when I first start a book, I'm always kind of like, ugh, I just want to like go back to the characters from the last book that I read. You know what I mean? So I think that helped with this one because like I already knew everybody. The main FMC for this one was a new character, but we kind of got glimpses of everyone else basically from the first story, and the FMC from the first book was in this one. So you're getting that kind of like medieval small town vibe, which is kind of fun, and also kind of like a found family vibe, which is one of my favorite things in any genre, any book. I love a found family. Also, I just really love how like kind of unserious these books are. Literally, this one is about our FMC Bree, who is a cheesemaker, of course, and she basically hits a werewolf with a love potion on accident, and he becomes like obsessed with her. These are also spicy, by the way, which the spice in this one I feel like was a little more creative than in the first book. And now last but certainly not least for our September reads, we have Here Lies a Vengeful Bitch by Cody Crowley. I purchased this book a while ago off of one singular review, and it's kind of funny because the person that I saw the review from is someone that I do follow, but like I follow them just because I like their personality, because our book tastes are completely different. So to like purchase a book purely off of their sole review was kind of risky, but it definitely paid off in this situation because this was definitely a fun one, and I feel like it's perfect for spooky season / fall. So I really liked reading this like right before October started. One of the things that I really liked about this book was how unexpected it was. Like I had a vision of what I thought the book was going to be kind of going into it, and it was that, but also was not that at the same time. I was actually really confused when I started this, and I don't want to tell you why because I don't want to give anything away. Like the first bit of it really makes you question what is happening, and I loved that. And then there's also just like a huge chunk of the plot that was not mentioned whatsoever in the synopsis. So yeah, this was just all around really fun because I didn't know what I was getting into. Like I thought I did, and I did not. Also too, this does have that aspect of like a murder mystery, and I love a good murder mystery. I like trying to like figure it out as I'm reading, but I did not. I mean, I kind of had a little bit of suspicion, but I was like, no, but yes. This one definitely takes you on a journey. Also too, it does get pretty dark near the end, which was fun for you know, spooky season. And with that, those are all of the books that I read in September. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite books for September were. I hope you guys have had the most amazing of days, and I will hopefully see you in my next one. Bye!